So today let's start a new topic, containerization. So before starting this topic, let me tell you something about operating system. Let me tell you what are the goals of operating system, and then we can connect how the virtualization and containerization is helpful, right? So basically, operating system have many goals, have many tasks to do actually, but the very relevant tasks that are specific to this particular unit are these three, which are listed on the slide: process isolation, programming abstraction, and restricting resource consumption. Right. So, what do we mean by process isolation? Process isolation means when two or more processes that are running on the same machine do not interfere with each other in any way, but still there are ways in which they can communicate with each other, right? So, suppose there are two processes running on a single machine, they can communicate with each other, but they cannot, interfere into each other task, right? So this is process 1, this is process 2, and this is the duty of operating system to maintain the process isolation. Second important goal of operating system is programming abstraction. It provides a layer of abstraction to the programmer to write their code through functions and other um, other important programming concepts which provide programming abstraction, right? So for example, if you want to open a file on your system, you can have fopen function. Now this fopen is a system call which is there in Linux, right? Now there is a function which is provided. So internally the function will call, fopen system call and do rest of the things. But as an abstraction, they will provide user just a particular function. Let's call it, let's say, you know maybe, I don't know, any name, right? So let's call it function, func. And what you have to do is you just need to write the name of the file that you want to open or that you want to write. Now internally, this particular function will call fopen system call and many other system call and do everything for the programmer, right? So this is how it is able to provide the programming abstraction, right? Then we have restricting resource consumption. If it does not restrict consumption, one process can hog all the resources and starve the other processes on the machine. So it is the duty of, or it is the responsibility of the operating system to do resource management so that no process will starve for the resource. Okay, so the job of operating system is to do proper resource allocation. So these are the few important goals of operating system. So overall, with the goals of operating system that we have seen, the security of machines actually relies very much on resource isolation nowadays. Okay, because we are running lots and lots of processes, and this will actually makes the system very complex, and this is too much burden on the operating system. Okay, because the more complicated it becomes, the more difficult it becomes to somehow manage the security properties of the system, right? So at this particular point, it is very important, to introduce the concept of virtual machines as well as containers. Okay, and a very good example is the Chrome, which demonstrate a very good understanding by isolating the errors into one tab, right? So Chrome is the one who have introduced the notion of tabs, multiple tabs into one browser. And each tab is actually, a process in itself. And the process isolation is not, completely rely on the operating system, but the software or the application itself manages the isolation process. Okay, so here containerization and virtual machines plays a very important role. The overall goal is to somehow uh, put this responsibility on the application itself rather than just go and rely on the operating system functionality. Okay, right. So first let me tell you what do we mean by virtualization. Virtualization is the ability to run multiple operating system on a single physical machine, right? You are having a single physical machine, but you are running Linux also, Windows also, etc. And many instances of these operating system, Mac and any other operating system. And all these operating system actually are on the on one physical machine, and they actually share the underlying hardware resources. Okay, so this is what we call virtualization. So the main importance of virtualization is to a end user. It seems to have only one computer, but it seems like it is having many computers. It actually having one computer, but it seems like it is having multiple computers. Okay, and the advantages are definitely it provide flexibility to the user. It will amortize the hardware cost. So suppose you need two operating system, you have to go and buy two different physical systems, two different computers per se. So you are actually amortizing the hardware cost if you are installing two different operating system on a one single machine only. Okay, also it provides complete isolation. Each user have their own space to execute, right? So in that sense, user isolation is also provided. So virtualization is very important, and VMware is the first company who has introduced the notion of or the concept of virtualization. Okay. So let's see what are the formal requirements of virtualization, with respect to the third generation architecture. So I will say that the first VMM provided an environment for program which is essentially identical with the original machine. This is the very first requirement, right? The if a user is working on a virtual machine, it will not give him or her a feeling that he is not working on the original machine. Okay, it should be same. Okay, definitely a small degradation in the speed is acceptable, but not much. Okay, definitely since we are working in a virtual environment, we have minor decrease in the speed, but not much decrease is acceptable. Okay, and a virtual machine should be complete control of resources, the system resources I'm talking about. So basically, the virtual machine should look like you are actually working on the real computer with one operating system installed in it. Okay, so with that, I will say that these virtualization, we also call it as VMM, virtual machine managers, okay, or hypervisor. Okay, so these are like same, same thing. So a virtual machine can be seen in these four different ways. One is a traditional uniprocessor system. This is the normal, system where we have the hardware. One operating system is installed on it, and then there are different applications. Okay, so there is per se no virtualization in the first diagram. In the second diagram, we have a native virtual machine system. By native, what I mean is the virtual machine manager is actually installed on the hardware itself. Okay, so this is the hardware. We will install VMM or hypervisor over the hardware, and then in the virtual machine, we will install the operating system and our applications, right? The second way of doing virtualization is user mode hosted virtualization, where instead of having the virtual machine monitor on the hardware, we will have it inside the host OS. So we have the hardware and the operating system. So this is the full system that we are having, full running system. On the top of it, what we will do, we will install a virtual machine monitor or the hypervisor, and in that virtual machine we will install our guest operating system. So all the so what is the basically difference between these two styles? In the native VM system, it is the responsibility of virtual machine monitor or virtual machine manager to take care of each and every hardware resource accesses and all those things. Okay. Whereas in the second case, in the user mode hosted virtual machine, the virtual machine is hosted in the user mode, and beneath it there is a host operating system who will take care of rest. Okay. And then We can also have, so definitely this is little slower. Why? Because we are having one more layer. Okay, this is faster, but the VMM is having more responsibility in the first case than in the second case. So we have dual mode hosted system also, where some of the part is hosted OS and we have guest OS, and there is a possibility when VMM can directly contact with the hardware as well. Okay, so these are three different modes of virtualization. Now, so basically, we can say that they can be divided into two broad categories. One is the native, which is installed on the bare metal on the hardware itself, and in both of these cases, it is not directly installed on the hardware; it is installed on the operating system. Okay, so this is called hosted architecture, where we will install the application on the existing, or we call it host operating system. It could be anything. Okay, it is having a small context switching driver, leverages host IO stack resource. So all the you know task of operating system will remain still with the operating system. Virtual machine manager need not to do anything about that. Okay, and few example are VMware Player Workstation, servers, Microsoft Virtual PC, etc. Bare metal, basically hypervisor term is used when we do native virtualization. So it is installed directly on the hypervisor. It is preferred architecture for high-end server where speed matters. Okay. Examples are VMware ESX server, Zen server, Microsoft VDN server, etc. Right? So both of them are having their own advantages and disadvantages depending upon the requirement. So if you are using servers, you can go with native virtual machine system. If you are an end user, a naive user, you just want to install one more operating system in your machine along with what you have to keep intact what you are doing currently, you can go with user mode, of virtualization, etc. So now let's see OS as a reference monitor. So OS can be seen as a reference monitor which is sitting between user level application and the resources of the machine, right? So if you recall the diagram, it is something like, there is a layer of hardware, then there is a layer of application which belongs to user, right? User app. And here somewhere OS is sitting. So whenever any user application would like to access any hardware, it's the job of the operating system, or operating system act as a reference monitor which actually check all the access control, related things. So all the access control decisions are made by operating system, and operating system check access control mechanism against the security policies which is there. Okay, so if an application would like to access a particular resource of the machine, that then first that particular resource will be checked. I mean, the access of that object to the resource will be checked in the access control list, and accordingly, the action is allowed or denied depending upon whatever is written. Okay, so this is one thing. Now there are some operations which require super user privileges. Okay, so there are some system calls which require SU permission. For example, installing a particular application, you need this. Okay, so it is the responsibility of operating system to properly guard all the processes, and whenever required, just give the super user privileges and then take it back. Okay, so whatever the functionality operating system is doing, it is quite invisible to the user. So as a user, if you want to do something, you are asked for some, you are prompted for some password or something like that. If it you are allowed to do so, then it is then that particular set of instruction will be executed, otherwise user action will be denied. Okay, and in that sense operating system actually some enforces some sort of sharing, proper sharing of disk, of CPU, of memory and other resources. Okay, so this is, we have seen operating system as a resource monitor. Now what about virtual machine? So like a typical operating system, when we call about hypervisor or the virtual machine monitor, It can also be seen as a translation layer between the hardware and the virtual machine. The only difference is now instead of user applications, there are different VMs, there are different virtual machines, right? Which VM has to manage or the hypervisor has to manage. Okay, so these VMs are like the processes and operating system role will be played by hypervisor. Okay, so the hypervisor mediate access to the hardware between the processes, which is in this case virtual machines, and it provide very limited namespace so that there cannot be accidental leakage of resources and data to other VM, right? So the environment in which this has to work is very restrictive environment. Okay, also apart from providing this abstraction to different virtual machines, hypervisor is also known for simplifying programming abstraction. Okay, so if you can recall JVM, Java Virtual Machine, and things like that, so the hypervisor which are related to specific programming language, they provide programming abstraction. Okay, so at this level of abstraction, it is much easier to restrict resource consumption than at the OS level. Why? Because typically there are less number of processes involved. Because when we talk about operating system, there are lots and lots of processes, hundreds and thousands of processes running at a time. But in case of virtual machine, it is comparatively very less than the actual processes. Okay, all right. So now let's talk about what are the benefits of virtualization. So I think very first benefit that we all can visualize is minimizing the hardware cost. Definitely, you are actually trying to make multiple machines out of one physical machine, and this actually helps in minimizing the hardware cost. Easily move virtual machines to other data centers. Sometimes it may happen that the data centers are changed, the warehouses are changed, the company has to change the location, etc. And there are many such reasons. So when all this geographical relocation happens, it is very easy if we are using virtual machine to port it from one place to another. Okay, suppose there are hardware some disaster management, and in that particular view you have to relocate your data center, etc. There is some sort of a maintenance involved, and for that reason you have to move out somewhere. So all these things are very much possible when we are working with virtualization, because everything is virtualized, right? So if you are moving one system, you are actually moving 10 other systems. Okay, so in that sense it is that much easier. Also it provides a very much required functionality, and this particular functionality is related with power consumption. So it is called follow the sun or follow the moon. Okay, generally in the morning there are many active users as compared to the night time. Okay, so we need high power things at the daytime. Okay, so we have to follow the sun where we have lots and lots of active user, and similarly we can follow the moon where we can somehow close some of the machines virtually. We have this power. I mean, we can somehow rebalance the workload on different machines, right? So if the usage is bursty, we can accordingly set the settings. If it is somehow idle, we can do the settings in that manner. So basically it conserves the power, it free up the unused physical resources, etc. Okay, so there are lots of benefits of virtualization: scalability, flexibility, definitely, right? We have the flexibility to use multiple operating system on one machine. We can scale it more. Portability is very high. So all these are benefits. Apart from these benefits, there are few important benefits, which act, or we can call it as a technical benefits, which are related to virtualization, and they provide isolation at many different levels. We can have the isolation at the process level. We have isolation at the different virtual machines level. we have programming abstraction, and at various level we have different type of isolations available. And each virtual machine is independently managed. It could have different operating system, different virtual disk, different MAC addresses, and everything is different. You are altogether working on a entirely separate machine. It's like that. Okay. And when there is a problem in one virtual machine, the other virtual machine are, not uh, effect from that particular problem. Okay, so because in normal system, if there is a problem, the entire system shut down. But if we are using virtual machines and there is a problem in one virtual machine, rest of the virtual machines still can carry out their job. Okay, if the whole virtual machine crashes, it does not affect the other virtual machines which are around it. Okay, now we have talked about the problems and benefits of virtualization. Let's talk about the problems that are associated with the virtualization. And you can visualize the major problem with virtualization is the number of operating systems that are required. Although you have amortized the physical hardware cost, but still there is the operating system cost which is involved. Okay, you have to purchase that many license of operating system. You Each operating system has its own computational overhead, storage overhead, etc. There is a maintenance cost that you have to pay. Okay, so overall a virtual machine cost could be summarized to the cost of the operating system licensing and the management maintenance cost, right? So can we get somehow rid of this problem as well? Okay, now let me tell you through this particular diagram. There is a way in which we can somehow have the advantages of virtualization, but at the same time we can somehow reduce this cost drastically. And that solution is nothing but the containers. Okay, so what do we mean by container? So let's have a concept of container. We can have multiple container runs on one operating system on a virtual or physical machine. So if you can see in this diagram, container has the power which is independent of, whether you are running the container in a virtual machine or on a physical machine. Now what container did is container will actually provide this type of isolation between two processes. Okay, and this is known as one container. Okay, so all containers share the operating system, and hence this particular cost is amortized. Container are isolated and cannot interfere with each other. So somehow you are not going to the operating system to have the facility of isolation or separation. You have that facility, by default. Inherently, you can have that facility if you are using containers. Okay, so in container you have your own file, own data system, own networking, and they are very portable. So containers can be think of as these apartments. Okay, so there are some common area in the apartment. For example, the swimming pool. Everybody is living into their own separate apartments, independent with each other. But whenever they want to use the common resources, they can come out, they can use the resources, and then they can go back into their isolated environment. So this is what the idea is. Okay, now here the apps actually share the operating system. So there is one operating system and there are multiple containers over it which can share these common resources, and in this way we can somehow reduce the cost of operating system, etc. Now these apps cannot interfere with each other, they cannot access each other resources without explicit permission. If somebody has to go inside another house, they have to take proper permission. Okay, so this is a very nice example. You can view container as different apartments which are there in one society, and there are some resources which are shared resources. Everybody has to use those resources with some cost, right? So it has all the good properties of a virtual machine. Along with that, it also overcomes this additional cost factor, which is the disadvantage of the virtual machine. Now, Multiple copies can be run on the same machine or on different machine. In that sense, they are very scalable. Same image can run on a personal machine, in a data center, or in a cloud. Now, what all the good properties of virtual machine, and it has actually overcome that disadvantages of the virtualization, okay, of the virtual machines of different operating system, because different containers can execute on same operating system, right? Now, what are these containers? These containers are nothing but the image files. Okay. So basically, these are some kind of layered images. So in one container, what is one container? Container is also an image. Okay. And inside that image, there are layers. What are these layers? These layers are again, different images. It could be a layer of operating system. It could be a layer of some web server. It could be a layer of some other service which is there, which is provided by that particular container. Okay, so there is a notion of layers. Now multiple copies can be run on the same machine or on different machines. Same image can run on a personal machine, or so it is just an image, so it is that portable. It doesn't matter where you can put that images. Okay, it could run on your personal computer, it could run on the cloud, it could run on any, you know virtual machine which is there. So it hardly matters for a container, and that is how it provide very high portability in that sense. Okay. Now, operating system resources can be restricted or unrestricted at the design time of the container. So what you can do with the container, you can decide all those things at the time when you are actually building the container. Okay. And also it's run configuration. So suppose, for example, there is a command show process. Okay, so PS is the system call for, and with this show process command, you know, if you fire it in a particular container, it will show you the processes only belonging to that particular container. So that level of isolation is there. It can be stopped anytime. It can be saved. It can be moved to another machine. According to the Future X Network paper by Bell Labs, they somehow um, show the difference between a virtual machine and the container. So if you see the image space, so virtual machine is also an image, right? But in that image, operating system is a compulsion. Okay, there is operating system. So the image size is 3x, whereas in case of container, the average size could be x. Like VMs are 3 times more in size than containers. Boot time is greater than 10 seconds, and it is approximately 1 second. So you can see there is a 10 times, the containers are 10 times faster than virtual machines. If you see computer overhead, then also it is less than 5%. So there is a difference of just double. Okay, so there are almost half overhead. They generate at least half overhead as compared to a virtual machine. Disk IO overhead is also negligible in case of container, right? Isolation, VM provide good isolation, and according to the Futurist network, they say that container have fair enough isolation. As the work is in progress, so they cannot comment right now much on isolation, but they claim that the security is very high. Okay. OS flexibility is excellent in virtual machine because it's up to the user what operating system they want to install. Whereas in case of container, you have to rely on the underlying operating system, right? Management in VM, it is quite easy to manage, but in containers, since it is an evolving technology, right? So there is not much data about that. Impact on the legacy application, VMs not does not have much impact on the legacy application. But if we talk about containers, definitely there is a high impact. Okay, so you cannot use your legacy software as it is in case of container. Okay. So yeah, this is about, the difference between two. One example, very famous example of container could be Docker. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about Docker. Docker is a container. It is a runtime engine. So there are two editions: the Community Edition and the Enterprise Edition. Community Edition is free for experimentation. Any one of us can download this edition and work on this edition. Whereas if you are having Enterprise, you can go for EE, Enterprise Edition, where the deployment is free, but you need, for support you have to pay. There is a Go programming language developed by Google, and Dockers are built into Go programming language. Okay, and this is the link of the open source project. Docker is open source project. You can have a look at it. Now let's talk about what are the components of Docker engine. So this diagram tells us that, more or less, Docker required or consists of four important components. The first component is the daemon. Okay, so this is just the daemon API and other features it has. Okay, so first you have to run this particular daemon in order to use the Docker container. Okay, right. So once this daemon is running, you will get a prompt to work with. Then there is something called container daemon. Okay, so this gives image to run C. So basically, this is some sort of a execution logic. Okay, and it is responsible for the container lifecycle. With the help of container daemon, you can stop a container, you can start a container, you can pause a container, delete some container, you can unpause a container. So you can play with the container using daemon, container daemon. Okay. Then we have different runc. Now these runc are nothing but the command line interfaces, lightweight command line interfaces. Whereas what is shim? So runc exists after creating the container, and shim keeps the container running. Okay, so it helps in all the input output channels, maintaining input output channels of the container, etc. Okay, so runc is the command line interface, and shim keeps this alive, you can say. Okay, and container daemon is a interface through which we can handle the life cycle of any container, and daemon is a engine that you have to run before even start using these containers. Okay, right. So now these containers are actually built from images. As I told you, all the containers are nothing but the images. So whenever we build a container, it will be saved in the form of an image. Okay, and these images are stored in registry. Now these registries could be local registry. Okay, so the image is stored on the same computer on which you have built it on your local machine, or there is a Docker Hub registry, which is a globally shared registry. So your image will be stored there. Or if you have paid and buy a private registry from Docker, then you can save your image there as well. Okay. So these are the repositories from where you can take the images and to which you can store the images. Okay. So first, the search start in the local registry. If the other person will not able to find the image, it will then go to the global repository. Okay, so depending upon that level, it will go. Okay. Now here also, so for example, in Google Play Store and things like that, there are multiple Play Stores. So one is a Google Play Store where officially they vet the apps and put it there. But there are many third-party app stores as well. Okay. So it's similar to this particular environment where we have multiple unofficial registries as well, where images are not vetted. So if you are using the images from there, you have to handle them with care, because once you we don't know what is there inside. Once you install it, that particular container is affected. That's it. Okay, but yes, it is always better to get the image from the official Docker registry. Now each um, you know Image has several tags like version, whether it is latest or not, like so timestamp information, etc. So there are multiple things which are associated with a Docker, and each image is identified by n bit hash. Okay, so there is a fixed size bit hash bit, and these are calculated depending upon the image, and this is called image IP. Right. Each image is built of many layers. So this is one container. Now, if you look closely, this particular container has three layers. And what each layer does? Each layer will do nothing. Just it will somehow, it will somehow there in the container. Okay. So if this is the container, it is having three layers. The first layer is Ubuntu layer. So whenever you install it, Ubuntu will be installed. Then some sort of Python package is installed. And after that, there is a security patch installed